With that, I would like to welcome our next keynote speaker, Robert. Robert is the CEO of Lukka, Inc. So if you could just give Robert a round of applause. Whilst he's coming on, Robert is the leading provider of the middle and the back office enterprise and data software solutions for crypto asset industry, but they also do traditional rather than crypto only. And prior to Lukka, Robert had led large-scale risk, cybersecurity, and technology transformations whilst he was at PwC and advisory as well, but he's also an ex-Marine. So without getting into the ex-Marine side of things with current climate, Robert, let's keep it cyber and let's keep it crypto. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you all for having me today. I'd like to thank all of the rulers and leaders of the UAE, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi, and also Vertex Group for hosting this and giving us the opportunity to be a sponsor today. As we look towards this conference and realize that the focus is on the various benefits that blockchain offers to many industries, we look back at Bitcoin, which really started all of this over 12 years ago, and it offers a ton of lessons towards these other blockchain use cases that I believe it's worth reflecting on. We know that we're going to hear about supply chain use cases, healthcare use cases, and many others that are still in development, and we're very anxious to see them in production because we know how much these industries can benefit from them. However, when we look at crypto assets, which have now been utilized very materially for over 12 years, the lessons offer a reflection that's very different than the original design of Bitcoin. And so I wanted to share some of these lessons and the history that we've seen and some other observations that we've noticed at Lukka since we support hundreds of the largest institutions that are using these assets today. If we look back, Bitcoin was produced or went into production in January of 2009. If we look at 2012, Coinbase was founded as a very different company than what we see today, which is now a very, very material, multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. We see in the United States, the first tax laws were passed as early as 2014, requiring US tax filers to file their taxes on cryptocurrencies. The first stablecoin, Tether, was created in October 2014. And then in July 2015, Ethereum was created, which I believe was really one of the big accelerators of the rest of the innovation that took place following. And if we fast forward to today, we see that the market cap of crypto assets exceeds $2 trillion globally, valued in US dollars. That's mostly represented in the top 10 crypto assets. We have over 9,000 crypto assets that are traded today across institutions. And there's multiple publicly traded businesses, Galaxy Digital, we know Coinbase just recently is publicly traded, and we see many other companies that are looking to offer some form of a public listing in the near future, companies like eToro and others around the world. And so if we look at all of this and how material this ecosystem is, what really is the most material aspects to consider? Is it the underlying blockchain technology, or is that just simply a spark that's created a lot of other innovation? And if we look at crypto and cryptocurrencies as an example, many consider it to be a new asset class. Personally, I do not believe it's a new asset class. It's simply a technology that can be applied to any asset class. And it's also created many new asset classes, such as cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. But ultimately, this technology has enabled an exciting ecosystem to emerge that's trading and is transacting in very different ways than we've seen in the past. And this is because it offers new forms of accessibility. It offers traders, whether they're institutions or individuals, to trade assets for one another without cash, in fractional quantities, and across borders, for traders of all different types, whether they're the small trader that traditionally might have been prohibited from trading some of these assets, or the large institutions. And really, it's this new ecosystem that, in my opinion, which has happened more naturally and has evolved, very different from the original intent of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin white paper, that I think is worth looking at and reflecting on as we look at other use cases of blockchain in all of these other industries. I also wanted to share how I joined this industry, because I'm actually fairly new to it. And I was at, as it was mentioned, at PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2018. I was not involved in crypto. I knew just a little bit about it. I had read the white paper and whatnot. I was introduced by a friend and a colleague who had just invested in a small startup called Libra, which is now Lukka has rebranded as Lukka today. And really, he told me that he was building software for fund administrators that were responding to all of these crypto funds that had emerged around 2016 and 2017. I told him that I didn't really know much about fund administration or crypto, and I wished him the best. Several months later, we continued to hear conversations about this, and he said that there was a big challenge when it comes to sorting out all of the data across all of these businesses, and he needed someone to come in and figure out the use cases to create a back office software and data solutions for this ecosystem that was emerging. And so I decided to take a leap of faith into the crypto startup world. I was told by my other peers and colleagues when joining, they would offer me condolences, and they told me to let them know when I wanted to join a real company after I had finished playing with this new thing, crypto, that wasn't really going to turn into much. Now, when we fast forward 3 years from now, it's remarkable seeing all of the press and the developments. And I've been able to watch this firsthand by servicing a lot of the largest crypto institutions at Lukka. So today we service over 375 institutions through our software and data products, and some of these include some of the largest institutions in the world, names like S&P, State Street, IHS Markit. And if we look at all of the data that these are trading, I wanted to share with you all some of the metrics and the statistics that we've been seeing, because they offer some insights that I think are very interesting. First, across our institutional customer base, as I mentioned earlier, we support over 9,000 crypto assets. If we look back at 2013, the average number of assets that were offered on a crypto exchange, such as Coinbase, was 1. In 2016, we saw the average was about 7 cryptocurrencies. And then in 2017, the next year, the average is 23. And this was really the beginning of an ecosystem that was starting to interact with a lot more of these crypto assets instead of just the original Bitcoin. Today in 2021, the average number of assets offered on exchanges around the world are 34 crypto assets. If we look at the top exchanges per year across Lukka's institutional customers, again, back in 2013, the most commonly used exchange was Bitstamp. In 2015, that changed to Bitfinex. And then in 2019, that's Binance. Now, this is for institutional customers, very different than individual traders, which most often will trade on an exchange like Coinbase. And the reason why I share this is, why are all of these traders attracted to an exchange like Binance? What do they offer that other exchanges don't offer? And it's really, it's access to more assets. And they can trade them in fractional quantities for one another, like I mentioned earlier. And if we look at the next phase past Binance, and we look at DeFi and decentralized exchanges or DEXs, we see that they offer thousands of assets that traders can trade for one another, and offers them access to them with a lot fewer barriers than we see from exchanges from Binance that are dealing with regulators and standard setters and all sorts of scrutiny that we see around the world today. Now, if we look at the average number of exchanges used by year, we see that the average trader back in 2013 was trading on 2 exchanges. In 2016, it was 10 exchanges. 2017, 17, and today in 2021, we see over 50 exchanges used across many of these portfolios. Next, I wanted to share some of the misconceptions that many people, that we share with people very frequently, because there's a lot of use cases that tend to focus on this technology without understanding really how the ecosystem is using it. So the first that I like to share is that not all of this exists on a blockchain. About 95% of the data that Lukka sees from its institutional customer bases is held in privately held databases that's centralized, it's not decentralized, and it is not accessible on a blockchain. We absolutely have to look at data that's on a blockchain as well, but there's a big portion of it that exists in privately held databases that needs to be sorted out. And this data is gathered and collected without any standards involved or standard setters. It's in various formats and inherently is very difficult to manipulate. Next is that not all of this data is private or anonymous. Actually, blockchain and crypto offers a ton of transparency into these assets when utilized the wrong way. It requires some new technology to use it. And so we have to create businesses and oversight and other procedures in very different ways than what we've done before. But it absolutely offers a lot of benefits that people, contrary to common belief, think are actually hurting the use of it and the transparency associated with it. Now with this, we are missing standards today. And this has, I think, been incredibly valuable for innovation. But as traditional finance, as traditional institutions begin to adopt these assets, we have to have standards. We have to embrace it. We have to work with governments, with regulators, with standard setters so that we can reinvent the rules that were created years ago for many of the assets that we use today, and we can apply them towards crypto. To give you some examples for the chartered accountants or CPAs that are in the room, there are no formal primary markets. There are no close of days. And all of these types of attributes are required so that we can do things that we take for granted, such as assigning fair market value to these assets, which is required for any formal financial reporting. These are just some of the examples that we have to consider as we start to set standards for all of these new crypto assets. And to close, I wanted to mention some remarks and encourage people to think of things depending on what role and what capacity that they act in. But for businesses, regulators, and governments, think about technology risk. Financial risk has matured a ton over the past couple decades, but particularly more than ever with crypto assets, technology is at the center of it, and technology risk needs to be managed in new ways, and that's one thing that absolutely deserves a lot of attention as we move forward. We have to create new rules, but the intent behind our existing rules mostly hold true. And we just need to look at that intent and then create thoughtful but also practical rules that don't prohibit traders from utilizing this technology so that we can continue to allow innovation to take place. To everyone, I encourage everyone to learn with hands-on experience. If you're part of any form of a blockchain use case or initiative, whether it's in healthcare, it's supply chain, or any of the other many ones that we see out there, I encourage you to look at the crypto ecosystem and look at all of these lessons, because it offers over 12 years of lessons, and actually trade, interact with it, see how traders are using it, because you're going to be surprised that a lot of the things that you might think take place are very different than what you might read about in articles or newspapers and whatnot. And then lastly, I would just like to thank everyone again for this opportunity. I look forward to meeting you all and collaborating with you at this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Robert is one of our anchor sponsors there, Robert. So Lukka, and without their help, events like these cannot happen. So thank you, Lukka. And thank you, Robert, for being our anchor sponsor. Round of applause to Robert, please.